Welcome to the 21st Century Film Club. Today's film is a Super Mario Bros. Movie, which is still available in cinemas now. So, what did you think of the film?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really nostalgic. It kind of made me, like a lot of the references I remembered from my childhood, from playing the Super Mario Bros. Game and from like Mario Kart as well. There was a lot of little references, and I thought the music was really well done as well, and it was just like a really nice, nostalgic, feel-good film.
Yeah, no, I was really surprised at how much I did enjoy it. I think it was one of those films where I heard a few negative reviews about it, so I was quite surprised that I just kind of thoroughly enjoyed every moment, and I quite liked certain aspects of it, like the singing. I just think it's a film that didn't take itself too seriously, and I watched a film full of children, and it was definitely a hit. You know, there's lots of laughing, and I also laughed several times myself at the jokes too.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. Like, I didn't know what to expect really coming into it because I had heard a few like negative reviews, but I really enjoyed it, and it reminded me of like playing Mario Kart on my DS when I was younger. So it was nice to like reminisce. And the cinema was still quite packed to say it's been out a few weeks now.
Yeah, no, it's totally been packed. I think a thing about the film that was the casting of Chris Pratt as Mario. And Chris Pratt is like a major movie star, and I quite like him as an actor from Parks and Rec. But it drew a lot of criticism, especially from Italian and Colombian and other kind of actors, about his him being cast as Mario. And what did you think of Chris Pratt in the role?
I thought he did well, to be fair. Like at the start, when you first get introduced to Mario and they're doing the Italian accent, I did think at the start that he'd be doing that the whole way through the film. So I was quite surprised when, for the rest of it, it was just like him like speaking in his normal accent. But I think he did well. Like he really put a lot of energy into the role, and he did like this signature kind of like wahoo and let's go, all that kind of stuff. I think he did that really well. So even though he didn't have the like classic Mario voice throughout the whole film, I think he brought in enough elements of like the original Mario to like make it work really well.
Yeah, I did. I have read some things where people were a bit like, why have they not stuck to the like Italian accent all the way through, or they're just sort of having a stereotype of like a Brooklyn like Italian person. But I did think that like once you'd sort of established that it was for the advert they were having for their business, and then it sort of showed. And then when you saw the family setting, I feel like the Italian accent obviously like it was still there a little bit, but like not as strong. And I thought they kind of unpacked that a bit more, so it was more understandable. But I think he did a good job. Like he brought in a lot of the characteristics from the video games and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it was good that he was such a big name to pull people into the film. I think it is quite sad if there was a Italian actor who was less known, who could have probably done just as good a job in the role. I don't think it required so much, but he did do good like voice impersonations of like the wahoo and everything. But I think it was a good casting decision, because I think he just has that like fun, personable persona, and it just kind of let the whole film audience at home know that this is not a film to be taken too seriously again. So if they had gone with very reflective casting, perhaps it would have not alienated people, but it would have maybe misled people into thinking that this is going to be a realistic film, when really it's kind of more of an old-fashioned children's film like Shrek was, rather than kind of new films. And I remember in the cinema there was this advert for this upcoming film which may be amazing, which is called The Eternals, and I think it's by DreamWorks. And I thought that looked absolutely dreadful and kind of woke, and it was kind of a plot you'd already seen before. And I think it was Frozen was that film where post-Frozen, everything had to be a bit more coded or have some sort of message to it. And I thought Frozen was a lovely Disney film, and if it is a metaphor for being gay or neurodiverse, so a lot of things that other people read into it. But I think 10 years on now, it's kind of been so done by so many films pushing messages onto children that this Super Mario Bros. Film has been such a hit with audiences, specifically because it's because it's not woke, and I don't know, maybe that's too strong a word, but it definitely was a entertaining film, a popcorn film. It wasn't putting any messages. What do you think of
No, yeah, I feel like there wasn't any like hidden deeper meaning. It was more just like they had the concept of the video game, they wanted to create it into something for the fans. And I know like a lot of people like over like across different ages and demographics, they've seemed to really enjoy it if they were a fan of the video game. And I think that's really what they set out to do, and they've accomplished it.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was kind of just it was a bit of escapism, like in a way. It was just a nice few hours of feel good, like nostalgia. I think because we're a bit of an older audience as well. You kind of knew a lot of the references from the classic games, and it was just like a nice couple of hours you didn't have to think too much. Say there wasn't any kind of deeper meanings that you had to search for or feel like, oh my goodness, this is very like hard hitting and intense. It was just a really like fun, feel good, nice film.
Yeah, I think there was great world building, and they set up the Mario Land very well. And they kind of left a bit of ambiguity about it, like how did Princess Peach get there? And some people were quite harsh critics that they thought this was like setting it for another sequel. But I thought in a kids' film, I don't think anyone really cared that it left any questions open. And really it was just to highlight that it's kind of farcical for humans to be around like little toad people. And it was just a good film. And I think what actually did work with it was Chris Pratt's humour and Charlie Day. And I think Charlie Day, who played Luigi, I think he was probably the best voice actor in it, because I think he really nailed like the anxious person. And I think that was very smart, because the relationship for video game fans between Mario and Luigi, from like Luigi's Haunted Mansion and just seeing Luigi kind of being number 2 to Mario quite often, it was interesting to kind of see that explored. As probably the closest to like a message was, you know, don't live in your brother's shadow, or you're just as good as your brother and you can just be friends. But they weren't heavy on that, which was good.
Yeah.
But the singing, what did you guys think about the singing and kind of the musical elements in the film?
So I did feel like the second Peaches started to be played on the piano, it definitely just gave me like School of Rock instantly. Like with Jack Black, I was like, oh, like you can definitely tell this is him. Like he always sort of puts his like a stamp on his roles, and I'm like, yeah, like it just instantly made me think of that. But
yeah, it is odd, because I think having played the games, I always forget that Bowser does want to marry Peach, and that he is, because he's always like the bad guy, and I guess he don't really pay that much attention to the plot often.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see them kind of like critiquing that in just a fun, like playful way, and also for him just to bring just like the broad humour in of him being so bad at flirting and how to approach women and how to like conquer a woman basically by destroying her own kingdom and her own independence. So she's yours. And it was, I think he was probably one of the best bits of the film, and it did really feel like the stakes were not low, they weren't high, they were just more like personal about love and like kiddie puppy love romance. So it was quite nice that there's like a little love triangle going on. I think that kind of, without that, the film might have actually fallen apart, because it was just a quest that you kind of knew it would be solved. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like with I think like you say, Jack Black was like perfectly cast for that role, just because he kind of, I think, although it is a children's film, like the way he kind of acted Bowser, it kind of did make it feel appropriate for an older audience, like some of his humour and just the way he kind of acted the character. And I think with some of the other characters like Donkey Kong as well, and like the whole Kong army, you wouldn't say like it's just for children and only children will enjoy this, because there was quite wide-ranging like sarcasm and humour that would appeal to all ages and kind of draw everyone in, I felt, throughout.
Mm-hmm. What did you guys think about the power-ups that they used throughout the film as like a tool to kind of understand how like a human would be able to do that? Do you think it was a good choice, that?
I think for me with the power-ups, it was like the nostalgic kind of element, and when they had like, that's when I think the music and the sound effects also worked really well, because there was things like when they got the invincible star at the end, that power up, and they like used the music really well to kind of trigger the memories that you kind of remember from your childhood but you forget. So I think using them in that way and letting the humans use them to power up and like get the powers that the creatures in this like kingdom already have, I think that was like a really good way to bring it into the storyline.
Yeah, no, I really agree, and I really like your point about the trigger and the music and playing the video game aspect. I just think it was just a way they kind of turned it around on that point, and they kind of managed to make everything kind of be coherent just by saying, like, this is how he runs up and does everything. This is how it was funny they had the scene where he became physically, like, fit enough to do the course, and he was, like, practicing and everything. And I think it was just kind of like those moments of humour, and it's just silly, that really kind of sold the film to me, because I think, you know, even nowadays, a lot of films wouldn't bother to kind of go into that little detail of things. You know, it just felt they really thought through things.
Yeah, I think they were good because obviously they made references to it, and then, like, obviously, like, eating the mushroom and everything to, like, power you up and everything. Like, I feel like it was really needed, and then, like, having, like, the little sound effects from the game in the film, like, just linked everything together. And it also made it link from him just coming as, like, a human into this gaming world that he could work and navigate himself around. Like, I thought the little power-ups linked it all very well.
What did you think of Peach's character?
Yeah, I really liked her, and I think the fact that she was the one that taught Mario how to become, like, someone who could, like, conquer the kingdoms and get through, that kind of did turn the game on its head, because, like Super Mario Bros, it's about Mario being the one who goes and saves the princess. This was like a complete reversal of that in some ways, because she was kind of helping him to save his brother. So she really was, like, the hero, I guess you could say, at the start of the film, and then by the end of it, it was kind of about the teamwork and everyone kind of working together to defeat Bowser. So I think that was quite interesting how they didn't just keep with that classic concept of, like, the brothers being the strong ones going and saving the day. They did, like, really twist it, and I think that worked really well.
I thought it was good that they sort of showed us, like, a powerful woman, like, from the get-go, basically. Like, they were all looking up to her for, like, guidance on what do we do with, like, the upcoming attack and things. I think the only time that, like, maybe that was maybe in conflict was when, in order to protect, like, her land, she agreed to marry him for, like, a part of the film. But then obviously when the plot uncovers and you find out that, like, that was never her intentions, like, you know, she's sort of like a strong, not like female role model, but like a strong female lead in the film, I think.
Yeah, I really agree with your word there on lead. It wasn't like she was a secondary character at all. And what was nice about this as well, the teamwork, is none of the characters were that so much a protagonist. And that did actually work in this film, because if it was just all about Mario and Chris Pratt, then it probably could have gotten a bit like bone and cell. But they had Luigi, they even had Donkey Kong and his father's relationship, and it was like an ensemble cast. And Peach was like one of the strongest elements in it, because she was she had a kind heart, you know, she was smart, just as good physically as Mario in this game world. And she also, you know, her selflessness was important. What did you think about the blue kind of ghost thing that was appearing everywhere? Because personally, I just thought it was terrible, and I think that was maybe the one bum note.
That was the one thing I didn't really understand, because I didn't like remember it as a character from the original game, so I don't know if it was a reference to like another game or something else that you'd understand if you were more into gaming, but it did seem like a bit of a random kind of aspect to have like among everything else. I don't know if it was just to kind of, if it was to appeal more to the older audience as like a kind of like internal thoughts. Like, I don't know, it was strange because I think as a child you wouldn't really understand the kind of humour element there. You kind of just be watching it like what's he saying? But I think when you watch it as a bit of a like older person, when you're going in for this like escapism and nostalgia and just like for a feel-good film, it was a bit of a strange element, particularly when it didn't seem like one of the kind of classic characters. So I think, like you say, it was kind of maybe the oddest, like not the worst part of the film, but it was just a bit of a strange thing like among everything else.
I think it was maybe a joke about when Mario's gone through different waves of popularity and success as kind of the video game consoles of Nintendo have. So I think it's from maybe like Luna, like when Mario was like in a planet, and he used to have like a planet that was himself, and then a planet that was someone else. What was it, Super Mario Galaxy? Like that type of thing, and that was kind of like later on when like the Wii was quite popular already, but I don't think it was a big success, that game. So I think in the back of my head I was trying to figure it out, and I kind of agree with the humour. It was just, I think one of the children in the cinema said like, okay, like back to the, it was like this depressing kind of negative thoughts, but I don't know whether that was to say don't be negative, which was a very, very like quick commentary there to say like be a positive person and don't be a downer, don't be suicidal basically with wanting to go down into the lava. But I think it is from Super Mario Galaxies, but I think maybe it's a very niche joke for like insiders who would be like, I know this is a reference to a game that didn't perform well, but that doesn't really translate to the whole audience.
Yeah, I feel like that makes sense actually if it is like a commentary of a game that hasn't gone so well, but I think it was just it wasn't really touched upon to the extent where the audience would kind of understand that, like you say, unless you're like a proper gamer or you're really into Mario, you wouldn't really pick up on that reference. So I think it did just come off as a bit like of a bizarre element to kind of have like amongst all the happiness and nostalgia, and that it did seem a little bit strange.
Yeah, I think if they were gonna obviously have it like that, makes a lot more sense as to why it was there, because I was just kind of like, what is this like pessimistic little bubble? But I think it like they maybe need to do it a bit less. I think it was a bit overdone, especially like at the end when it was like, oh, like it was sort of like boom reality, like it was trying to like be like not a voice of reason, but a voice of like realism, like, oh, it's not all this happy and cheery ending. I was like, oh, can we not just have it a bit longer? Like, because you go to the cinema for escapism, and then it just kept like appearing with negative thoughts. But no, maybe I think it was definitely to appeal to an older audience, but maybe just if they'd done it a bit less, it would have been better.
Yeah, it's almost like when you're cooking the meal and you kind of put a sour element on it and you think it like brings everything together, but then no one really touches it. It's that type of like film equivalent. I don't know, but I do agree with you. It was, I think maybe they just wanted to bring that little bit of realism in, and I can understand why they'd think that, because maybe they think it's too sugary and saccharine, but it was a Super Mario Bros. Film. I don't think anyone was expecting like depression or like negative feelings to really be featured in it. And I think what was more effective in that was smaller elements, like the high school bully in the end being like, go Super Mario's, because that was comedic, you know, it had like a humour to it, even though it did make a point that people won't be there for you when you're unsuccessful, but as soon as you're a hit, you know, they're going to be flocking for you primarily for money and clout. So I think that was a better point they made.
And I think the whole thing they touched upon, like the dad and son relationship as well, like with Mario wanting to make his dad proud and Donkey Kong wanting to make his dad proud as well. That was kind of another realistic element they did bring in, but again, they didn't go too deep with it. Like you didn't feel like, oh my goodness, that's a bit intense. They did it in quite a light-hearted way. Like at the end, Mario did make his dad proud by like defeating Bowser, and Donkey Kong made his dad proud, like he saved him from the lava. So I think it worked better in those ways where they brought like the elements of realism into the storyline, and still did it in quite a fun way, rather than just having this random little thing just saying pessimistic thoughts randomly. It did seem a bit of a strange choice.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I think it was weren't done well, and it sort of like bonded the two characters together that were both going through a similar thing with their fathers, and it was quite nice at the end. So like, normally people always remember Mario as like a key one, and then Luigi comes second. But it was sort of nice how the father recognised them both and without these are my sons, like as a collective, rather than like having one over the other or anything like that.
Yeah, it was nice, the brotherly relationship, because I think it was saying we're all good people. Even Bowser was a good person. So instead of just being a villain who was awful, his motives were quite quite funny, just to kind of get the love of his life to like him back, because he's got an unrequited crush. And in that way, it was like the good of humanity, like with everyone, and no one was a bad person or to condemned, which is again why that blue spirit thing, it felt like they didn't have that good side to them like everyone else in the film did, which was a bit odd. I do think the critics were very, very unfair in this film before it came out, and I think it does actually show how kind of out of touch. It's gained more than 800 million at the box office worldwide, and for an animated film, I think it's the highest grossing film so far of 2023, and it will be one of the biggest films of the year. So it does show you that critics, a lot of them, if you're not a fan of Mario, though I could understand why you didn't get it, but why should their opinion count so much when they're not a fan? And giving them like 2-star ratings in the national newspapers, it seems a bit unfair, that.
Yeah, and I was speaking to a friend after who's a bit more like into the gaming world, and he was saying like typically gaming films, like adaptations, they're not well done at all. So I think the fact that like, not the critics, but most people who I've spoken to who have watched it, that like have come out with a really good impression and have really enjoyed it. I think, like you say, the critics have been harsh, especially if other gaming films in comparison don't tend to do so well with actual like gamers and people who kind of know the games and would get the nostalgic element from them. So yeah, I think it has been a bit harsh to like give it 2-star reviews, especially when it's meant to be like a fun thing. It's not meant to be taken seriously, and it's just like it appeals to all ages really. Like older audiences get the throwback bits, and like when there's the little power-ups and the references to the games, and then for the younger audiences it is just like a fun like animated film. So yeah, I think it has like received harsh criticism really.
It wasn't a lazy animated film either. I thought the sideways run-in of Mario was very good.
Yeah. And
that did evoke the game. So if you're a critic and you didn't appreciate that, then that's kind of more on you for not doing your research to praise him animation. I thought, do you know Sonic the Hedgehog? When that came out in trailers, he looked very bad. But with this, quite amusingly, people were saying that they thought Luigi was cute, which was, I was shocked to read that. But the characters were a lot more pleasing on the eye. They were like well-rounded, and they didn't, the world was just, it just did feel like a Mario game. It could have been, it's just like that je ne sais quoi, what makes it work. And they were definitely on the right side, in my opinion, and it wasn't Uncanny Valley, no.
I think even like at the start when they have like the little bust up in the restaurant, like even just like the sound effects of like hearing their shoes walk, like the fabric rub against stuff, like they'd really put a lot of thought into the animation, the sound effects of the whole thing, which I thought I appreciated a lot as well. Like some animations wouldn't think to like have the finer details of what everything would sound like, but I thought they'd really nailed that on the head.
Yeah, no, it is the attention to detail. It is, as you say, in Brooklyn as well as in Mario Land. And then the piping that connected it, it was a very smart choice as well to kind of do piping and plumbing. And it's one of those things where you've played like Super Mario Sunshine Bros. And you've played all these games, and in your head you still don't view them as plumbers, the two brothers. And then in this film it was like pipes, plumbers, like there's the link, and it's just stuff that kind of maybe flies over your head when you're playing it. So it was interesting to see this film raising attention to the things that the original creators did, I think 40 years ago now, in the early 1980s. So it is, and Mario Day is a huge thing as well in March. So it is kind of an institution now, Mario. I guess, as you were saying, Ella, about other video game adaptations, Assassin's Creed and things like Resident Evil, where they have either CGI people or real people blurred in with special effects. I think maybe a lot of people at first thought Chris Pratt he's going to look like Mario. No, he doesn't look like Mario. And obviously he doesn't look like Mario at all. And that's a fair criticism. And I think another thing to consider, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer with the casting of diversity with this. But one thing to consider is that when it's voice acting, there's lots of voice actors who play men and women, like in The Simpsons, and they're not cast on their looks, they're cast on their voice. So it is another thing to consider about who has a distinctive voice, like on Daria, or there's characters who do it in a different octave each time and they're so talented. So I'd rather, when it comes to animated films, have the best voice actor than diverse casting myself.
I think that's why like some of the voices for this did work so well. Like Jack Black, I think he did really embody Bowser, and he brought like the humour element to it. There was bits where he was like the scary character, there was bits where he was trying to flirt and he was a bit love-struck. I think all the different kind of emotions, you could hear it in the way he spoke and the way he acted Bowser, and I think he did do a really good job with that. I think he was probably one of the strongest voice actors. And yeah, I think most of the voice, like who they casted, worked really well. Like Anya Taylor-Joy for Peach, I think she worked really well. I think just the emotions they managed to bring in, yeah, I think they did a really good job with it.
Yeah, I think I do understand where you're coming from. I feel like if there were like maybe even some of the family, like obviously I don't know who they were cast as, but if they'd have got like say actual like Italian Americans like doing it, then that would have been like really authentic and that would have worked really well. But I think like the key stars that were the voices within the show, they did work well for what they were like playing, in my opinion. And then like I think it dragged more people in, because I know like initially when I first heard about the film, the first thing I knew, I was like, oh well, Jack Black's doing a voice in it, so like it made me want to go see it more. So I kind of understand why they've brought maybe some bigger names into it to sort of drive a bigger audience to the box office.
Yeah, no, Jack Black's enthusiasm in interviews and on the press junket has been like really, really good, and I think it is that childish enthusiasm that, to be fair, so Chris Pratt also has that side to him, as well as like a funny man and an action hero. And Anya Taylor-Joy, I think it is good for her to do something as commercial as this and as lighthearted as this. As she is a seriously good actor, but it is good to show that you can just carry a film. And I think in the future I wouldn't mind having more of like a Peach-led film or something. I think they were already talking about that in the press and there's been like leaks and everything about it. But it is a type of thing where if they just keep that humour and like sharp writing and very specific attention to detail that is grounded actually in the experience of the video game players, then I think they should make more sequels to this. I'd happily go see sequels.
Thank you for watching Film Club.